So we're on.
All right. Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 20th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Milford. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag
To
of
the
the
flag,
United
United
States
States of America,
to the
to the
republic
republic
for
which it
one nation,
stands,
under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
under God, indivisible,
and
liberty with justice for all.
All right, thank you. Meg, if you would call the roll.
Miss Austin? Don't think I saw her. Mr. Castagnoli?
Here.
Mr. Cater?
Present.
Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Miss Kearney? Here. Mr. Moore? Don't think I saw Carl. Mr. Mortimer?
Present.
Mr. Sadi?
Present.
Chairman Quish?
Present.
And Mark Zaharidis is advised that he will not attend tonight. He cannot attend.
Okay,
Thank
so we
you.
do have a quorum. That accurate?
Yes, sir.
Great, okay. First order of business is 1015 Bridgeport Avenue, Zone CDD3, petition of Alex Rekak for construction of an outdoor covered patio on map 43, block 214, parcel 40, of which Altima LLC is the owner. I apologize for mispronouncing your name, sir.
Mr. Chairman, could I introduce this briefly and kind of give a little bit of the background to this project? It's a little unconventional. Alex Rajek rented the existing space. It used to be, oh, help me out. What was the name of it? Anyway, the existing restaurant. Yeah, Rush. Thank you. And opened up Kiki's restaurant, which is operating right now. In doing so, he also got ambitious about creating outdoor dining. There was an existing terrace on the south side of the building. He, in creating the outdoor terrace, he also went ahead and built a covered area over that terrace. He built a new roof structure and actually went to build what he thought was a mezzanine above the terraced area. So you had a stair going up to a mezzanine area that he was also going to incorporate dining up in there. He did this without a permit. And so we cited him on the construction of this. We've gone through many, and we worked very cooperatively together. He hasn't used the space, but in doing our review for both fire code and building code, we advised Alex that certain things, short of sprinklering the entire building and doing any number of other updates, he was going to have to undo some of his construction. So, and then at the same time, as you're aware, the legislature introduced this outdoor dining statutes that essentially said that we could continue to look at outdoor dining independent of parking requirements and what have you. So what we're doing here is we are presenting the site plan that requests authorization to allow this single-story structure to be continue to be in place. And as part of the document, you'll see that they're actually proposing to tear down the second story that was built, as well as some of the walls that were built on the property line. These are all under the advisement and review of the building official and the fire marshal. So as I said, the dining space itself really shouldn't be a consideration. Again, under the legislation, outdoor dining is permitted. But what we are asking, or what Alex is asking, is for approval for the site plan to allow this roofed structure to stay in place. So at that point, I'll allow Alex and his applicant to take over.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
I assume he is.
Yeah, Joe, can I look at everybody that's on? Right now I can only see you. I don't know if that's something on your end or on my end.
I think that's on your end. Alex, you can hear me?
There we go.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we did. We should be good. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, we
Yes.
can now.
Alex and I are sitting together at the restaurant right now. But to briefly reiterate, Mr. Rakaj is one of the principals of Kiki LLC, the tenant under from Altima, who owns the property.
I'm
Alex is
sorry,
the-
sir. This
I'm
is the
sorry.
clerk. Can you
Yes.
just identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had Raymond Lemley, Lemley, on behalf of Mr. Rakaj.
Thank you.
So Mr. Rakaj has done extensive interior renovations, as I think some photos have been posted in the documentation section. On the interior, he also started some exterior work and did a fair amount of work, again, thinking it was part of the governor's plan or allowance to okay exterior dining. After meetings with the town officials, Mr. Griffith, all that construction stopped, completed the interior. He's open for business on the interior. He submitted the plans for exterior. Nothing is being done outside at this point in accordance with conversations with Mr. Griffith. So we're doing this in order to be able to start using that, subject to some proposed modifications based on the building department and the fire marshal. There'll be some changes made. That mezzanine area that was discussed will not be being used for any kind of seating. If it does remain, it would be used primarily for storage and not for any food service. But basically, there's been an extensive renovation interior. They'd like to take advantage of the season and be able to use the exterior, subject to any appropriate conditions that the commission seeks to impose, but in compliance with the continuing governor's orders to take advantage of the season to get that exterior area be able to be used. If the commission approves this, we'd need to move ahead with liquor control approvals for exterior service as well. But obviously we can't do anything and won't do anything with exterior service until the commission has spoken and we move ahead with the Department of Liquor Control. So if anybody has any questions, fire away. And I think the plans kind of speak for themselves. The photos kind of show the kind of work that Alex is proposing to do. He's basically done a complete renovation on the interior and would continue to do the same thing on the exterior if this was okay, subject to any conditions the board's commission sought to impose. So right now you're looking at a photo. None of that is being used at this point. It's completely closed. There's no service, food service or otherwise being done out there until we follow the proper procedures that are required by the town.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up from you, Mr. Griffith?
No, we've done our plan. Yes, excuse me. We've done our plan review, and again, this is being reviewed as a structure that's being built as an addition to this building. It's allowed to have a zero setback in this zone, and again, as one of the conditions, we aren't allowing them to put any walls in place along the property line. There's only columns allowed, and so we've scrutinized this structure pretty thoroughly, both not only from a zoning standpoint, but from a building code and fire code standpoint. And essentially at this point, the application complies with our zoning regulations.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Yes,
Yes,
here.
Mr. Chairman. What
Yeah,
was this a renovation of a former restaurant?
Yes.
And what was the name of that restaurant?
Yes.
Crush Sports Bar.
Crush Sports Bar.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
any other questions or comments from the board?
Question, I have several questions. Through the chairman to Mr. Griffith. When was
Yes.
this first cited for a violation of the zoning?
I don't have the exact date. I'm
Code
gonna
in City of Milford?
believe it was in February of this year.
And what were the violations that were cited, please?
Working without a permit. So specific our zoning regulations require any kind of improvement to a building to be done through site plan approval.
Okay, Mr. Griffith, and how many citations were there, please?
Just a single, it was just a single notice of violation. Again, we were, to be clear,
Okay,
Mr. Rakaj had taken out building permits to take the existing restaurant and renovate it into, what is now Kiki's, his current restaurant. So he had that permit in place. We were working with him and getting, with the health department, the fire marshal, we were working with him to get that business opened. And at the same time, very quickly, obviously, this addition sprang up, and that's where we said, well, no, this goes beyond the bounds of the building permit that we issued to you. And so that's where we told him, in no uncertain terms, stop work. And at that point, you're not to utilize that outdoor space until we get the zoning approval and then the consequent building and fire approval. But to be clear, to be clear, and I'm sorry to interrupt, the restaurant itself, Kiki's, was permitted and licensed to and is opened right now.
we have the fire, do we have all the other, all we have is inland and wetlands, I believe. Do we have any the other required inspections? Because we don't have administrative summary today. Do we have all the other departments that are required to be reviewing this, given a report before we make decision on this?
The only report that is pending is through the city engineer. We haven't received
It's
his
unusual.
report. But if I may, I believe I'm showing the site plan here. The scope of the work that would be, under review by Greg Podleski would be the subsurface drainage systems, which they're showing the details here, and they're showing the subsurface drainage through there. If it needs to be revised, I believe they have plenty of site to increase or frankly decrease the subsurface drainage system. So I guess that's what I would anticipate. We'd need verification. So if the board wanted to approve this tonight, it would be subject to any, as any time, subject to any comments and revisions necessary by the city engineer.
Which I've got no questions right now. I will at some point issue my comments and statements when it's appropriate.
So the fire marshal did not give a thumbs up, thumbs down?
The fire marshal has been working with us through this entire process. So I as opposed to submitting the actual site plans to him, he is, again, he's been part of the approval and review process.
Right, but generally we get the administrative review that includes, the police, the fire, the city engineer, and litany of, checklist, whether they approved or approved with conditions. Is that something we do not have on this application?
No, I believe the, let me.
That's wetlands.
And I'm sorry, I'm just. This is our distribution, our transmittal here. And so it went to the city engineer, the fire marshal, and to the board. It was not distributed to the sewer commission or the health department or what have you, only because those are separate. Those are being covered under the building permits themselves for the restaurant.
Okay. You scroll down, please.
Yes.
And this was in the Dropbox. I must have gone past it. Okay.
So
All right,
again, like, yeah, just to clarify, this application, the site plan is looking at just the covered structure itself as opposed to the outdoor dining
Well,
function.
yeah, so I mean, again, that's the new legislation we're gonna talk about in a little bit, but that allows for outdoor dining. And
Yes.
it doesn't say outdoor dining with an approved roof. So basically, if you put a roof on it, there's somebody that could interpret that as allowing a review of parking, because it's no longer outside dining, and therefore we would have a parking role in reviewing the parking requirements.
Yes, consistent with the other outdoor dining improvements that we've been dealing with throughout the course of the last year and a half now. And again, this is based on health department as well as fire marshal. If you cover your outdoor dining, we're still considering that outdoor dining. If you put any walls around your outdoor dining, you're no longer outdoor dining. So that's where we are requiring these things to stay open.
So if I'm clear, there's been no building permit issued or inspections done?
Well,
The
yes, there's
exterior.
been building permits issued for the fit out of the restaurant. We told them to stop work on any further construction of this covered overhang until number one, you got planning and zoning board approval. Number two, you got your building permits in place. And as I said, as a condition of getting this building permit in place, they will have to remove portions of the walls as well as the second story.
So the area that's designated as storage, that's a second story, is that correct?
And I'm going to correct the applicant that he is not going to be able to utilize that for storage.
So the roof has to come off and the walls have to come down.
No, the roof can stay put, the floor has to go away, and the walls have to go away.
So then it would be open.
It's a higher
Below.
open space at that spot. Yes,
So it'd be a 24-foot ceiling or whatever.
a very high ceiling. Yes,
Yeah, you'd be looking from the floor of the restaurant up to the underside of the roof joist or whatever finishes he puts on that.
that's correct.
Okay.
Can you show the picture again of the outside?
Yes.
No, the other one where it looks like there were just beams there. Is that all open window then? It's just air?
It's
between
open
them?
air. There's no
Open
windows
air.
at all.
So the center portion going from front to back is the only portion where there's an existing floor on the second floor. Or you go into plan again?
Yes. Sorry. So this dashed line in the center here,
Yeah.
where the stair is going up, that's where that's where the current second story is built and which will have to be taken down.
Okay, so
Now,
that middle is
this-
existing and that was part of the original building, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So it's
This area
just the
here.
stairs that has to go and just that center hatched area between the bathroom or whatever it is and the, okay.
Yes. Yes.
And what do you mean about the floor has to go? What kind of a floor are they gonna have?
There, it would be no floor.
It'd be open.
That cannot be usable space. So you'll be looking up 2 stories. You'll
If I'm-
see
oh,
you'll see
I was-
the
talking
framing
about-
lumber or, yeah, you'll see the framing lumber. I guess they could put a finish on it, but they couldn't have a finished floor. It would be open joist.
Oh,
in
I
that
was
second
thinking you
floor
were
area.
saying that you couldn't have the floor in the bottom part. I was
No,
like,
no,
wait a
I'm
minute.
sorry. That would be difficult to manage.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Quish, I think that if we go back to that, the bottom one, there's actually a bar that's also been built out. That's shown on the site plan reviews. That structure, I suggest, would have to come down because it's an outdoor structure that's enclosed. That would be next to the stairway that Mr. Griffith showed.
I Not sure I understand. Are you talking about this?
Yeah,
What,
it's an outdoor enclosed construction attached to the building. It's not part of the outdoor seating. It's not part of the outdoor area of the establishment that the outdoor dining is for. It's right. Yeah, you can see it's a built-in with a
This
roof
here.
on it. Yeah. And
And
it,
again,
and it
that-
goes
that-
approximately 40 feet.
No.
By the site
So-
plan.
Let me relate. See this bar that says Kiki's on it? And again, that's open. It's in the wintertime, it's gonna have to be closed down. It's not gonna be enclosed at all. And that is this area here, just this area, this L-shaped bar is what's shown on the floor plan. Don't confuse this with this unshaded area, which is existing building here.
That was there before.
Correct. I believe that was walk-in coolers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So I think Bob's question is the bar area that your cursor is on now,
Mhm.
is that considered outdoor seating? Or is that in compliance with both the governor's emergency act and the new legislation, in your estimation, Joseph?
Yes, we believe so.
Okay. So I think that was clarifying your question, Mr. Sadi?
No, it hasn't. My point is this is being rushed through. I don't think we should review it tonight. I think we should get the administrative summary. We should get the findings of all the appropriate authorities. And quite frankly, I don't agree with the assessment of Mr. Griffith. I appreciate his comments. This is not outdoor seating. This is completely enclosed and the roof has got to come down if they're talking about that to even call it outdoor seating. And I've looked quickly at the law. It's somewhat ambiguous, but it's pretty clear that most of what we're talking about is going to areas that are parking areas and sidewalk areas. I don't see anything in the new law that applies to this area, which apparently was existent use prior to this going into effect, or I don't know.
Yeah, it was an outside patio. Before, I think it was stamped concrete or something. And some seats out there. People go out there and smoke cigarettes. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, Joe, so when this was built, when this addition was built, it was built as a structure.
Yes, that's correct.
It was built.
And it has been reviewed by the building department as well as the fire marshal's office as an addition to the building. And
Yeah,
that's where he's required to make these modifications and frankly demolish certain portions of it
Were there
in order to
permits-
make sure that it complies with the building code and the fire code.
Were there permits issued?
Well, the permits for this structure that we're looking at here in the photo, no, until we cannot issue permits until the planning and zoning board issues a site plan approval.
So in other words, this entire structure was built without permits and it was, looks to me like a permanent part of the building.
Yes, no, and again, this is as we do in our office, when something is built without a permit,
Yeah.
we require them to come in and go through the permitting process.
Okay, thank you.
So we could think about this as without the photographs, without the story behind it, having it been built. If it just came to us with the same documents, without a backstory, we would look
Right.
at this as a site plan review. And we would say that they have a buy for parking requirements because of the new law that just passed. Is that
Yes,
how you're seeing it?
that's how we've been administering this application.
Right. Now, if it was, if they wanted to make this 3-season or full-time, they would have to comply with CDD 3 parking requirements for restaurants.
Correct. It's yes, once you enclose that space, and like we said, with any portion of the walls, once you enclose that space, then we're going to look at this as no longer being permitted under the outdoor dining regulations, if you will.
Okay. Okay, I think that clarifies it. I mean, I think that there's, you know, again, I don't know that, obviously the new regulations are put in place to support restaurants in the pandemic, and they've expanded it for whatever, doesn't matter why. But it does create a situation where the site is going to be undeniably underparked, right? You've pretty much doubled the seating capacity without adding a parking space. So logistically, you can't park enough cars to get these people there. There's gonna have to be other means of getting people in. And so I would ask the applicant, do you have a contingency for valet parking? Maybe use, so there's a ton of neighboring lots that are primarily daytime uses. Had you thought about that, or?
We have think about a lot of issues regarding of the parking. We asking this committee to approve us for outdoor seasonal seating, and in the summertime, most of the people, they want to sit outside, so it's not going to be more than capacity of what we have inside, because inside will be empty when they sit outside. But if this committee asks us to take a look in the valet parking, we will take that step.
Thank you.
There's substantial parking on the property right now. The daytime business that's here. There's no one here during in the evening when the primary business hours. We've also approached the neighbor to the south.
Who's the neighbor to the south? Is that the former dry cleaner?
It's an empty lot. It's an empty lot.
So it's got the fences around it.
What's the gentleman's name? Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, I know the site.
It's like an old farm stand or something.
Right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Question, I still have some more comments. I'm reviewing the summary of the outdoor dining changes. Again, this is a summary by Connecticut Planning Association. They indicated a couple of things. First and foremost, it has to be outdoor dining only. So that bar has got to go. It can't be outside is my assessment of it. Secondly, it's going to be only offered till 9 p.m. unless it indicates unless the zoning commission allows that. My point is, if this is outdoor dining, there should be no bar out there, and follow the rules at 9 o'clock. My point is, continue, kick it down the road to the next meeting. Let's find out more about this. And I do think, and I disagree with the chair, it does make a difference of how we got here, because this was it was a violation of the code, and we're now trying to assist them. And I think we have to follow the rule of law for all people coming before us. I agree. If we didn't know the backstory, we would treat all applications the same, but we do have a backstory to this, and we don't have anything to support the finding that the Department of Health is going to allow it, that the fire department is going to allow it, and the city engineer is going to allow it. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, I wasn't saying that we shouldn't consider it, that I was just saying as a posit, what if it came in as just a new application? What would we be looking at? To put it in just that level of perspective. Is there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I have a mind, and I've always done this, if any one of the members wants this to be continued, then I think we should continue it. And I do see value in getting final information from various departments, as well as some clarification on the new law. So without objection, we will hear this again, continue it at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
No objection here.
Okay,
Objection by Mr. Sadi.
what's that?
No objection by me, Mr. Squish.
Oh, okay. I thought you were objecting to it, and I thought that would be a
No,
little
no,
odd.
I'm not.
Okay, all right. So I thank the applicant, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks. The next
Just
order,
as a matter of procedure, do you guys, I'm sorry, do you guys need to vote on continuing this, or is that
no.
just
that's chair-
procedurally?
Chair's
Okay.
preview.
Okay, thank you.
Without
Thank you.
objection. So
Mr. Chairman.
essentially, it was, if anyone objected, we would have heard it and discussed it further. But without objection, we
Okay.
moved it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
next order of business is the review of recent state land use regulation changes. Mr. Griffith, if you would lead the way.
Chair, I
Yeah,
have
we
just a point of order before Mr. Griffith starts. The question I have is just a point of order. Should this not be referred to both of our standing subcommittees for their review and appropriate work on it over the course of the next? I mean, it's great we got the materials, but should we not have it just referred to both subcommittees for their review?
Well, it'll be a concurrent effort. I think that it's important that everybody sees this as soon as possible and gets an understanding of it. And I think that specifically, each of the two subcommittees will have work to do on it. But it is something for these are the regs for the state. So the whole board has a total interest in it and should start getting familiar with it sooner rather than later.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think this summarizes essentially the outline here, the table of contents here of this American Planners Association of Connecticut. Kind of highlights the major points that we're looking at: accessory dwelling units, the multifamily housing, the outdoor dining, which again we're familiar with, recreational cannabis. I'll jump back to that in a second. Parking and traffic, land use approvals, explorations. So a lot of these things have worked their way into the legislation. And I don't believe it's going to be incumbent on this board to, as you were referring to, Mr. Chairman, to approve or necessarily, I guess the point here is a lot of these things are going to mandate changes to our regulations. And so I guess that would be the point of this agenda item, is to review these, get an understanding, and just kind of prepare the board for where this needs to head. So I guess if you'd like, I can kind of scroll my way through these various
Yeah,
sections.
I mean, I think so. It's only 7:30 and I'm sure we all carved out at least a little bit more time than that. And unless everybody would just prefer to read it on their own. This way we're going to do this more than once, I would think.
Yes.
And then, but I'm okay with just going through it. And if there's questions, we can ask them now, but it's up to the board if they want to continue this or want to just read it all on our own.
I'd like to continue, and I'll read on my own as well.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I would just like to read on my own, I'm sorry.
okay.
I think
Right,
I'm over.
unless-
I think I'm past,
Yeah.
I'm
so let's
past
just-
that level where someone's reading to me, but
Maybe you could just give a synopsis. I mean, I'm sure that Mr. Griffin isn't going to read it to us, but a synopsis of what this all means, each section.
Yeah, maybe
Well,
hitting
you know
the
what,
major
actually, Joe,
points.
there's another document on the list that has, I think, a more concise summary.
Is it this one we're talking about?
No, then there's the third one.
All right, then let me stop sharing for a second. And
Geez, I like your fancy vacation back screen you got there, Mr. Griffith.
I guess I'm not seeing what you're seeing, but. um, All right. So I've got the 28-page legislation. I got the outdoor dining, the land use legislation summary. Let me just double check that.
Can you get out a full screen, then I can maybe identify the document that I'm thinking about? Or is
Yeah.
that still on my view?
That's on your view, but let me, let me just start sharing again here. Please, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I've got these documents, which I believe this is dealing strictly with the housing. This is an oversight of the legislation that came through in 2021. Again, this is a 7-page overview.
Yeah, that's more, of, I think, what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I was,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's just go through it. The Zoning Enabling Act, which will become effective in October 1st, and I'm not going to read this, I promise. But essentially, this is mandating that our regulations include these considerations or provisions, I guess. And again, I won't read them all, but again, this is going to have an impact on our regulations, and I believe it's incumbent on this board to make sure our regulations are in line with the statutes.
Do you foresee any regional or statewide planning and zoning entity coming up with a like a fix, you know, some kind of a document that says these are the things that you're going to do outside of this? I mean, I guess everybody's different, right? You can't go say, all right, section 3.1.4 needs to be changed because everybody's document is different.
Right.
So we're going to have to do that work.
Yes, I think that's our challenge. My office and with this board is to go through and just correlate the each one of these provisions with the provisions in our regulations, and I suspect that it's not just going to happen in one section. We're going to be going through the entire book very thoroughly to make sure that you know, we're picking up all these revisions that have to be made.
Yeah, it might be time.
I have a question. Joe, if you could go back to that
go back,
section
Joe.
where it says optional. Yeah, right there.
Mhm.
The very first thing, those promoting solar, wind, or other renewable energy combined heat and power. So give me an example of what that might be. So if somebody comes before us to build a great big apartment complex, we can say, well, we will let you, but you need to put solar on the roof.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's exactly what this is saying.
Okay.
But we have to codify it. We have to codify it in the regulations first.
Yes.
So we'd have to do a regulation change and we'd have to discuss it all and figure out, well, we want it for every new building, or we want it for every new commercial building, or we, you know, whatever we as a board decide to put into the new regulations, no one can come back to us and say, no, you don't have the authority to do that, because this gives us the authority to do that.
So it's the
And we can actually have a carrot too. We can say, and if you do a green roof, that may cover some of your open space requirements. Or if you do, you know, solar panels on the roof, we'll give you a consideration. You could go up another floor. I'm not saying those are smart ideas necessarily, but just giving examples of, we would be able to craft new legislation that could not only lean on this to give us the authority, but also give people an incentive to do it.
Well, October 1st is not that far away. I mean, when is when and who is going to sit down with this document and our big fat regulation book and start going through this thing line by line?
Joe
I agree.
Griffin.
There's three of us on the committee and we know what our challenges are on regulations.
Yeah, well, I think that, I think obviously the heavy lifting is going to be in Joe's department.
Yeah, Dave's not here, so yeah, Dave's gonna have a,
Dave's going to do it.
So, Mr. Quish, if I might, I am the liaison of the Southeastern Council of Regional Governments, and they've already been considering some of the changes that even passed before this final bill came. And there are several communities that don't have commissions like we do with affordable housing plans. So they've already been actively working on it for the last couple of months. So I assume we'll get guidance from them also. So I'll let you know that.
Good.
But I just want to volunteer, not the other members of the committee, but to assist in trying to make the regulation we have now synthesized with the ones due on October 1st of 21. I would be willing to volunteer my time on that also.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, these things we have to do. What are the ones that are really sticklers? To eliminate provisions that allow consideration of the character of the district. And so, and then instead, the language will be drafted with reasonable consideration as to the physical site characteristics of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses. Now, I'll tell you what, that is the best language I've ever read in anything that was meant to be misunderstood. I mean, are you kidding me? In one sentence, you can get that many words that have so many different meanings.
That could
Physical
be read
site
by-
characteristics, peculiar suitability to particular uses. That's a good one. Jeez, I wish I could write poetry like that. I don't know. I guess that one we're gonna have to wrestle with.
well, but I think the point is though, I don't believe our regulations have the verbiage about, basing your decision based on the character of the district.
Well, we do, and so, I mean, and we found out that it didn't have the teeth of law
Right,
when we were looking at Prospect Street.
right.
Because that district specifically said, we have the right to do something. And then all the case law was brought up that, no, but you really don't, just because our regs say it. Now this
Right.
is like, how do you hang, there's not even a nail in the wall to hang your hat on that one. Gee whiz. Well, so to provide for or require cluster housing. So they're allowing that. They're allowing overlays and floating zones. I don't know what a floating zone is. What's a floating zone?
I think that's just another word for an overlay zone, but I'm not, or overlay
In a
district.
planned development district, I mean, would that be like the historic district, or that be? We could have a district that's planned for 830G and then I don't understand the next one either. Different ways of looking at traffic. I don't know what that is.
Quite the document.
Well, again, keep in mind, I believe a lot of these provisions and these bullet points were in response to specific cities or towns, maybe not this one, that had these provisions.
Right.
Saw those as being exclusive and trying to get rid of those. And so, because I said, I think our challenge, my office's challenge, is going to be to go through point by point, not just the summaries here, but the actual legislation, and highlight the provisions in our regulations that are going to be affected by it. And in some cases, there won't be any regulations or not the individual points on these in the legislation won't have any effect on our regulations.
Right. So these are the optionals, and then there's the restrictions, what we cannot do. I wonder if there is a definition of cottage food operations somewhere in the new law.
I'll bet it's in the legislation. Somewhere in the state statutes they've got, I mean, typically if they're using a term like that, they would have it defined.
Because that's interesting.
That's what we talked about last week when we were talking about Walnut Beach.
Yeah, all the little
Yeah,
sandwich shops and,
make your cupcakes and sell them at the beach.
yeah,
And keep in mind, what you're mandated is to not prohibit it,
right.
which we don't. I mean, we could very well
Well,
look
it
at that and
depends
say,
on, well, it depends on what cottage food operation is defined as. I mean, you can't just go in a residential area and put up a coffee shop.
right.
Can you?
I don't know. Well, no, because
mean-
we don't prohibit it. I think we will allow these things through special exceptions and special permits, but not necessarily require a variance or have it prohibited.
Bed and breakfast?
I'm going to guess yes. A bed and breakfast would be permitted through, like I said, a special permit or a special exception. And that's
So
the
I'm-
language that we use consistently when we say that so long as a use is not specifically prohibited, it is subject to special exception.
Right, and this doesn't contradict that.
No,
It just says you can't outright prohibit it, but you can require a special permit or
Right.
special exception.
it doesn't mean that you have to write it in as a allowed use in a residential zone, for
Right.
instance.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it, yeah. And
You know
this whole thing, we could opt out if both the alderman and the P and Z by 2/3 votes to opt out.
That's just on the parking, isn't it?
No, that's the
Is it?
whole,
Oh, I thought it was just on that one bullet point.
I think it's up top here, right?
is it for the whole thing, Joe? Do you opt out?
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman. I have not gone through this.
Okay. Well, the accessory structure thing is pretty interesting. I wonder how many people will do it. You still have to,
But didn't we nix that? We, as a board, we voted not to allow that, didn't we?
no, this is different.
Oh.
We had what they called the granny pods. or
Right?
The accessory healthcare structures. And again, we could have opted out and we chose not to, but no one's come up in front of us with anything. This is different because this doesn't have to be a family member and it does not have to be health related and it does not have to be, with the granny pods, you would have, if the need was no longer there, you'd have to take the structure down or take it away. This doesn't say that. It allows a accessory structure of 1,000 square feet or a 30% of the size of the building, the primary building, without a special permit, public hearing, special exception. It does have to fit in with the setbacks. Is that accurate, Joe? In your
I
mind?
believe so, yes. Yeah, I think we still have to comply with the accessory structures.
So, but people could always go to the zoning board of appeals and get a setback adjustment.
If they showed a hardship,
Well,
I mean, if you're going to build a structure, why not build it with the,
well,
in
if you don't
compliance?
have enough room, a lot of small lots out there. But, yeah, one of the main hardships has always been the requirements were done before the buildings were set up. So this is this is a new, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and you know, that's funny. We cannot require them to be affordable either, which is, they try so hard to create a diversity and opportunity. That would have been a great opportunity to say you have to make it affordable. And they decided not to.
Jack, could you have the, I think it's Mr. Griffith, go to page 11, which is the meeting procedures.
Mhm.
This was going to be coming up in reference to the August meeting.
There it is. Look, we went by it, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So in short, you can enable meetings to go back to the way we were, fully in person, fully remote, as we're doing right now, or hybrid meetings. And let me say that we have meetings, scheduled appointments with the technical, the people from MGAT and Milford Public Access channels, the people that record the meetings that are going on in the City Hall, the Alderman meeting, the Board of Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as the Board of Education, working with them to see how we can actually effectively put together a hybrid meeting, which is obviously allowing Zoom and anybody through Zoom to participate in a live meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that's important. I mean, if we have a surge in a new variant, I'm not going to want to be there personally.
Right.
And I'm not going to, I don't know who's going to come into the room from the public, and they're going to, you know, require that they're inoculated. And I don't know. I'm just not going to be happy about that if we don't come up with a solution for remote, or I mean hybrid, because I know some people want to go back, and I appreciate that, and I want to accommodate that, but I'm hoping that MGAT and that team can put something together quite rapidly by next meeting.
Chair, if I can, just at the very bottom of this 163, which is slightly just below your cursor, Mr. Griffith, you can move that up just a bit. Am I reading it says that the agencies are to provide the opportunity for the members to be able to be remote?
Yes.
Through the hybrid meetings, I believe we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Correct. But I mean, just, you know, I mean, it
Well,
gives
that
you three options, but
This
it may
doesn't
be
come
that
into
there's,
play until October 21st, right? October
it
1st.
actually says July 1st of 2021. So it's
Okay.
applicable now till April 30th of next year.
Okay. So the city of Milford is required to give agency members a way to attend electronically. Is that your reading also, Joe?
I believe that's only if we have hybrid meetings in place. So, I mean, again, so
It requires that agencies provide the opportunity for agency members to attend in-person meetings
but
electronically.
yes, and we did discuss that. And I'm sorry, because we already do. So I mean, again, if you know, Bob Sadi, you know, called in at a meeting through his cell phone, he can participate in the meeting.
Participate.
Yeah. So whether it's through Zoom or just on a phone call, he
Okay,
can
so we have.
listen to the
We don't
presentation.
have basically the best technology to get it done, but we have it can be done.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, you know, I know I'm gonna spend some time on these and try to understand them, and I'm sure everybody else will too. Does anybody have any questions about them, or anybody want to go further down the list? I think these are the ones that are appropriate to our commission.
I printed them out and I'm going to make a list of questions that I have for later.
Okay.
I would encourage, if questions do come up, please email them to, our office and so we can engage the city attorney as necessary to get any kind of, feedback from that office.
Okay.
Good.
At the last meeting, we did talk about recreational cannabis, right?
Not a lot.
No, I don't think so.
I think the, at least the city's approach that was discussed a few weeks ago is that essentially recreational cannabis won't be an issue in our zoning regulations. It's not like medical marijuana where we're trying to locate where dispensaries would be or not be. In this case, what we're going to do is throughout the city, essentially restrict it and as much as the legislation allows it, prohibit it.
So who's going to restrict it?
The police through ordinance.
And then they'll just say you can't, we're not going to be able to buy recreational in Milford.
I believe that's the case, yes. Unless, again, the legislation specifically requires it, but I don't think it does. I believe it allows the city to, whatever you want to call it, opt out.
Or
So that's Board of Aldermen who have to do that, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
well, could be a nice revenue source.
You already have the medical dispensary, so
Yeah.
I don't see what the,
I don't have a medical card though.
yeah. We'll go tomorrow and get one.
All right. Anybody else have questions or comments, or you want to go through a particular thing again? You want to look at the 830G?
The outdoor dining, since we've been talking about the last couple of meetings, is there anything in there that might be insightful at all to what we're dealing with?
Yeah, here's the section.
I mean, I think this lower paragraph kind of sums it up pretty, food establishments may provide outdoor dining as of right. And as we discussed and reviewed as part of the application at the last meeting for the outdoor dining, this says specifically that you can take up site elements, specifically parking elements for this, but you cannot necessarily take other whatever you want to call it, regulated aspects of the site for your outdoor dining. So that's what we're saying. If we have provisions for landscaping and you can't take, or you can't reduce the landscaping beyond the minimums in order to provide outdoor dining. You can take your parking and reduce that below the minimums, but you can't do it with it. And I'm using landscaping as an example, but we are going to draw that distinction.
Now, one question, we're in the first line, 10-day turnaround in applications. How does that apply with Kiki's? I mean, we're talking a couple of weeks in the next meeting. Is that going to be an issue? Are we kind of going against the rules there, or is this something different because of the zoning regulations? How does that apply to that situation?
Well, again, this board with the Kiki's application was not looking to approve or even review the outdoor dining. He can do the outdoor dining. It's a question of whether he can utilize that structure that he built, and that's the only decision that was being presented to this board.
Well,
He could take those tables and chairs that were under the covered area tomorrow and move them out into his parking lot, and we would have nothing. Or take down the structure. Yes.
It says here, though, again, as Mr. Sadi pointed out, I don't know why it says if outdoor. as of right, and it says if outdoor dining is approved. So that's kind of contradictory, right? It says food establishments will have outdoor dining as a right. And then down 3 sentences later, it says if outdoor dining is approved, food establishments can offer it until 9 PM or later if allowed by the zoning commission. So it looks to me like if anybody wants to use outdoor dining after 9 o'clock, they have to come to the zoning board and get approval.
I would read that to say that the zoning board would say across the city of Milford, we're either going to stop all outdoor dining at 9 PM or we're going to allow it to continue till 10 PM. But I don't believe the intent is to take every application. I mean, again, maybe we should talk to the city attorney on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Whether
that
we
it's-
take any application that's looking to stay open past 9 o'clock and bring it to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some considerations there. Like one, is it in a primarily residential area where it'll be more disturbing to people? And if it's in a more commercial zone when there's no one there except for empty businesses, is it more conducive to leniency on the what time it shuts down? So I think it
Well,
is.
what about Stonebridge? Aren't they open until all god awful hours of the night? They're outdoor dining, right?
Yeah,
Right now?
that
They also have an outdoor bar.
That's
I'm
already been
assuming
permitted,
these,
though. I mean, that's already out of the barn. That's been there for 20 years.
I'm assuming these statutes are only pertaining to newly
New.
created outdoor dining.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good question, though.
Well, you're right, Joseph. The very first line says exactly what you said. It's only pertaining to the new stuff under the executive order. So I think like a Stonebridge would not be any consideration for that. I don't think.
Yeah, so again, we're going back to what we saw tonight. If they want to use that space past 9 o'clock, they're going to have to ask for it and we're going to have to approve it.
Well, I think what Joseph said is not per case. It's going to be the city has to make a
Well,
decision.
yeah, but
Well-
that's not here now, and we're going to see this in 2 weeks. We're not going to have this baked in 2 weeks.
The way we are proceeding, just like we've proceeded in the last year and a half, when applications come in with outdoor dining, they still are going into the building department, the fire marshal's office, the health department, and the specific permit that we're issuing administratively would say that per this, you're closing off at 9 PM unless you want to go in front of the board and ask for some later hour.
Okay. Makes sense.
Well, I wouldn't call it go that far, but
What's next?
do we want to review anything else on this, these bullet points?
What was the, there's something with affordable housing.
Yeah, I was curious about that. You brought that up, Jim.
It's not here. Maybe it's multifamily.
I believe that would be under the multifamily.
Yeah, the last paragraph, the municipal affordable housing plans.
Is that the city that has to do that or the zoning board that has to do that?
I think the city is doing something with a number of other cities, neighboring
Yes.
cities. And I'm sure there's going to be a commission and I'm sure that some people are going to, yeah. I don't know who's going to sit on the commission. I think it's appointed by the mayor.
Hmm.
Let's scroll down if you would, Joe.
Oh, geez, did I?
Not that far, not that fast.
Sorry.
I can't read that fast. Go scroll up a little. Thank you.
So here's a good example. I mean, it talks specifically about minimum unit sizes. We have those. And so I assume this means that we're just going to have to strike those out of our regulations.
Yeah, we'd have to go back to what's the building code?
Well, the building code, those minimums are pretty small, but
Are they?
oh yeah. I mean, it's
Like what, 350?
oh, it doesn't even go by units. It talks about individual rooms that you've got to have certain dimensions for sleeping rooms and that type of thing. And like I said, they are tiny.
Why are they doing that?
One of the discussions that we had, and I believe even gotten as far as the Plan of Conservation and Development Committee, was this discussion about tiny houses, right? And so
Yeah.
that was the issue right now, in an effort to assure that we didn't have whatever you want to call it, mobile homes. Tiny houses kind of specifically got excluded out of our regulations, and I think that's what this is going to. One of the things we're going to have to do is go through our regulations and be scratching out these requirements.
Okay. So that, you think that might be the impetus of eliminating those sizes to allow for tiny homes and just smaller living spaces in general for.
Yeah, I don't think it's the impetus is for tiny homes, but yeah, just again, that's one way of getting your housing affordable is to make it smaller.
Cool, okay. Yeah, anybody just chime in whenever if you have something you want to ask or say. Want to scroll down, Joe?
Yes.
Go just to that.
We don't have to deal with recreational.
Just another thing on the recreational, does that just apply to being able to sell it in town, or what about the usage? I mean, does it deal with that, or I didn't really get a sense. I know some towns are opting out of allowing places to sell it, but
yes,
are they making it like a dry town that you know it's against the law for people to partake in it?
The discussions that were had a couple weeks ago. Again, I believe this has to go in front of the Board of Aldermen and get reviewed. But essentially, you're free to possess and carry and use marijuana on your private property, but that's it. So do it in your own home. Don't do it in public.
Interesting.
So the town could enact regulations against, in other words, but if they don't, then you go by the state law, correct?
Yeah.
Totally legal.
The state law allows the towns to restrict it, I believe.
And you're getting a sense that the political will is to restrict it. Is that what you're saying, Joe?
Again, based on the meeting that I attended, yes.
Yeah. So they're promoting bicycle and walk paths.
Well, I mean, again, here's your reduced parking requirements. So I think it's, these are good discussions that ought to be had in every one of our zones. Because we talk about transit-oriented districts and being able to reduce parking. This is doing it a little more broad brush throughout the throughout our regulations, but I think these are good discussions that ought to be had.
Yeah, it's smart to look at that. I mean, this is looking at residential, but there might be,
I mean, just generally looking at this, it looks like these regulations, our regulations are already in line with these anyway.
are they? Okay.
Well, it could be. Yeah, when they talk about 2 spaces for larger housing units, I know in some cases we'll go up to 3 spaces, but. Can I continue down?
Yeah, please. Did we just administratively approve an extension for Grillo? In his affordable housing project on next to the highway?
Grillo?
Joe, we granted an extension of his permit? Of his
The inland
approval.
wetlands, they extended their approval. I believe we established that, I'm sorry, I don't know the actual application that was made in front of this board, but yes, they are able to get their zoning permit based on the previous approvals.
Okay, for 5 years. The 5-year extension is what I read.
Yes.
Wow. That's a long time to wait to do your subdivision.
Weird.
You could scroll a little, please. So this is interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit open to interpretation. Yeah, if we could find out a definition of a floating zone and how it differentiates between an overlay and a planned development district,
Okay.
or get definitions for all 3 so we can see them. Yeah, I'd like to see the definition of cottage
Keep going
cheese.
right there, isn't it?
Cottage
Cottage
food.
food, right. Small scale home-based food production. Okay,
Could you hold on 1 second? I'm just, that first paragraph, it's kind of weird. Earlier on, they was sounded like their message was so convoluted that you didn't have any control about the character of the neighborhood. But here it sounds like they almost want you to
Right.
to protect the historic, tribal, cultural, and environmental resources. Well, I guess that's more land, I guess.
Well, clear physical characteristics. So is that the building characteristics? Is that fluted columns and for the weather clapboard kind of stuff? Or is it's really flat, so don't add hills?
I'm not quite sure. So it's just
Or I think it's hilly, don't take the hill down, don't change. I mean, I believe it's talking about the physical land characteristics as opposed to the neighborhood.
You don't think it's architectural at all?
it says
Hang on,
any
please.
consideration of character must be to character defined with clear and explicit physical characteristics.
And I know, is that just the land or is it also the built environment too?
I mean, our regulations right now will talk about in our specifically downtown district or whatever else, the use of certain materials, the prohibited use of texture 111 or what have you, vinyl siding, talk about use of pitched roofs. I think that's what they're talking about, defined with clear and explicit physical characteristics. So I think, you know, I would look at those and say, well, that's in compliance with this, the intent of this statute.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should find out, you know, as much detail as we can on that and what it permits us to look at and decide upon and what it doesn't, you know?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
can we have an expert on this new law from the state legislature, the state government come down and sit with us so we can get answers to these questions? Because it seems like we're coming up with a lot of questions. We're kind of scatter shooting and none of the questions or very few of them are getting answered. It just seems like we're surmising as to what an answer would be, but we need an expert in this law. Okay, an attorney who's reviewed it extensively or someone from the state.
yeah, let's look into who the best person or people are to
Yeah,
reach out to. See if they could, you know, host a little charrette or something.
yeah, if they could come to one of our meetings and go through this with us.
Through the chair to Mr. Castagnoli, they did define cottage cluster, because I'm looking at the Public Act,
Uh-huh.
a grouping of at least 4 detached housing units or live work units per acre.
Uh-huh.
They define cottage cluster, but I can't find any definition, Mr. Chair, for overlay zones and the like. They talk about them, but no definition.
You found what? I couldn't understand,
Act.
Mr. Sadi. What did you say you did find?
I'm looking at the Public Act.
Yeah,
It was not provided on material. So I found a definition of cottage cluster, but none of the other, no, it's none of the materials that we have.
cottage what?
Cottage cluster.
Oh, cottage cluster.
There's a definition of that, but nothing about overlay zones and the others.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, so if that's, hopefully we can find somebody from either a land use expert, either an attorney or a maybe
Mr.
one
Chair, I
of
think
the, maybe somebody that was on the committee that wrote these statutes, the Planning and Zoning Committee of the legislature.
I think it's an excellent suggestion by both you and Mr. Castagnoli to questions. Does our budget provide for any authority to hire somebody such of that nature to speak for us?
Do you have any money you could use, throw at that, Mr. Griffith?
Yes, depends on how much they're looking for, but yes, we do.
I mean, and some of these law firms, you know, would love to do something like this for free because it obviously gets their name out there.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Lynch and Mr. Crusaden have taken a look at it.
I bet you're right.
And out of their goodwill towards the board, maybe they would sit down and
Yeah, I don't think I'd want either of them to. I think they're gonna skew their interpretation to support their present and future clients, not.
Well, let me just point, I mean, to that point, we have attorneys on this board that, you know, ultimately questions about what the intent of the statute is and how we go about complying with the statute winds up in a court. You know, so it's not up to a particular attorney or even a particular member of the legislature to say that this is what the intent is. I assume that what happens is a question gets brought in front of the court and a judge is deciding it.
Yeah, I mean, but there's certain, we could probably sharpen the pencil a little bit.
Right.
Oh, sure, yes.
I mean, all we're asking for are opinions, educated opinions on what the answers are to our questions.
Good idea.
We don't know what will actually happen in a court of law.
All right. Is there anything else we want to look at? If not, no public hearings, no old business liaison report. I think we already got one from Mr. Sadi regarding unless you have something else to say about that?
At this time, thank you for asking, though.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports, we looked at, the POCD committee looked at Housatonic Development District and Waterfront Design District at the last meeting, and we'll probably look at that again next meeting. We do not have a schedule for the next regulations subcommittee, but I'll work with staff on getting that meeting set up, and I think we'll probably be focused on the new laws and see if we can effort getting an expert here to or somebody here to weigh in on what's in front of us. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved to approve.
Second,
Second.
without objection, they're approved. Chair's report, just that this is our last Zoom meeting as scheduled, and the next meeting will be at City Hall. Again, if anybody does not want to attend, they will be permitted to. If there's not a audio-visual function available, there will at least be an audio portion available.
Quick question before you finish on that. There are substantial changes in notice that will be going through you to the secretary. It does require, it looks like when I read the quick summary of it, 48-hour notification if we've not been using that for a Zoom meeting or if a hybrid meeting, it doesn't tell us. But we should be mindful of that. I mentioned that through you to the secretary. Mr. Sulkus is not here.
Okay, good point.
Just, Bob, if I may, we've been advertising in the paper and maintaining the website-based advertising on 2 tracks.
Right, thank you, Meg, but I think it says definitely it's gonna be 48 hours notice now, not 24.
Okay.
For the distinction between Zoom and in person, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Staff report, Mr. Griffith. Mr. Sulkus, do you have a staff report?
And Mr. Sulkus does not have a staff report tonight.
Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.